Hi Security Tube, welcome to part 8 of the Exploit Research Mega Primer. Now, last two videos we've gone in depth into how the SEH works, how probably you could go ahead and cause an overflow, override the SEH handlers and all of that. So in this video we are going to bring all that knowledge and know-how together and look at how to finally exploit an SEH based vulnerability, right? So hopefully you've enjoyed the series till now. I know the videos are getting a little bit too long than what probably most of you would want, but the whole thing I have in mind is to cover the basics as much as possible and only then go ahead to showing the actual exploitation and stuff. So hope you're enjoying this style. If not, let me know. I'll probably make things a little bit more faster. So let's move on. So how do we go ahead and exploit this? Well, I think most of you may have already figured this out, but let's go through the process. If you remember what we said, that the program stack is going to have the local variable and after that the exception registration record, which primarily consists of two fields, at least two fields as we know. This first field actually is going to point to the next ERR record, and the second one is actually a pointer to the exception handler defined by either the application or by the operating system. Now, when we go ahead and override the program stack using some sort of a buffer overflow, essentially what we are going to do is we are going to overwrite most of the beginning with just A's or some other junk. After that, we are going to calculate the exact offset of where the next ERR record starts, the pointer to the ERR record is, and at that point we are going to write basically a short jump for 6 bytes. We'll come to how this will work in just a bit. In the next 4 bytes, we are going to write the address basically to some place in code which actually has a pop-pop ret sequence, right, as we've discussed in the previous video. What will happen is after this pop-pop ret sequence executes, we'll basically have EIP pointing to this location, which is the exception registration record, and hence the short jump will execute. Now what we'll do while overflowing the buffer is after the exception handler pointer, we'll write a small nope sled and then our payload. So now when EIP ends up pointing to the ERR record start, right, because the pop-pop ret sequence is going to put the establisher frame inside the EIP, and the establisher frame is nothing but a pointer to this memory location where the current ERR record is actually starting. Now at this point, EIP is actually interpreting these 4 bytes basically as a command, and what we are going to do is we are going to write a short jump command here for 6 bytes. Now this will actually force EIP to jump forward over the exception handler into the nope sled and then carry on and execute our payload. Now why 6 bytes? We'll just come in a bit. What is the explanation? So here is the overall idea. See, basically I've gone ahead and inverted this here. We have the payload in high memory, we have the nope sled, then we have the pointer to the exception handler, which is actually going to point to the pop-pop ret sequence. Now what we require is when EIP points here to the beginning of the ERR record, it has to actually jump forward and get into the nope sled. Now a short jump only occupies 2 bytes and the opcode for that is EB, as we know. Some of you may already know. So EB06, where 06 is actually going to be the operand given to it, EB06 is actually going to ensure that from that point on there is a jump happening in EIP for 6 bytes. The reason 6 bytes is the short jump along with the value only occupies 2 bytes. So we are going to go ahead and add 2 more bytes of nope or any other character which is not a bad character frankly. And then after that we have 4 bytes of the pointer to the exception handler. Hence 4 plus 2, 6 bytes. We need to jump 6 bytes to our nope sled into our payload. And this is the reason why here we are going to write a short jump for 6 bytes. So how are we going to go ahead and write the exploit? First, we need to find the exact offset of the ERR and the exception handler on the stack. Second, we need to find a pop-pop-ret sequence in a module without safe SEH. So this is a new term which you may have been hearing right now, safe SEH. So as you can imagine, people were exploiting SEH based vulnerabilities for quite a long time. So Microsoft decided to come up with a fix where they did a couple of things. First is, most of the CPU registers get zeroed as soon as we enter code in the exception handlers context. Also what they did is, modules can actually, while you're building them, can be linked with a safe SEH, right? What the safe SEH does, it goes ahead and creates a list of safe exception handlers which basically were available at the compile time, and it was compile and link time, and a small table has been built of these safe exception handlers. The whole idea is to build a whitelist and blacklist everything else. So basically what the OS does is, whenever an exception handler is being executed anywhere in a given module, it checks whether this exception handler actually belongs to the safe exception handlers list. Only if it belongs to that list will the execution continue. Now, I think from what I remember, the safe SEH actually was applied after Windows XP Service Pack 1 and future onwards. So the only way we can subvert this is to go ahead and use modules which have been linked, which have not been linked with the safe SEH option, right? So basically, if you think about it, modules can be either safe SEH enabled, or they may not have safe SEH, which is what we call safe SEH off, or they might not even support SEH, right? In which case, of course, they can't be used at all. I just forgot to add this little bit of text. So what we need to do is, we need to find modules which have not been safe SEH linked, right? So there are a bunch of utilities. One is a simple script called safe SEH, which ships with the Immunity debugger. And usually in the 1.8 version, I found that this script was broken. So we can't use it. You may have to fix it yourself. It's a simple bug. I visited their forums. But anyway, I don't really want to get into the actual, scripting using the Immunity library and all that. We may come to that in later videos. The other utility is the PV find ADDR by Peter of Codeland team, right? This is a very versatile utility which you can actually go ahead and use along with Immunity, right? It's actually a script which will run in Immunity, of course. So how do we do that? So the first thing is, let us first figure out all modules having safe SEH enabled or disabled, right? So for that, we can very simply open up the Immunity debugger, and the first thing we can do is, of course, start the EasyChat program. You can look at the modules which have been currently loaded, and then here the first thing you need to do is, of course, download the PV find ADDR script from this URL. After you've downloaded, it's very easy to install it actually. You can just go to the Immunity debugger directory, and in that you have this little directory called PyCommands. You can just copy it there. That's all there is to it, right? So to run it, you can just basically give an exclamation mark, which is actually somewhat like break into the shell and run the script, and actually go ahead and give it the name PV find ADDR. Now after that, you can just write modules so that it gives a lot of interesting information about the various different modules, right? This is one way in which you can look at all the modules and look at some interesting information. Let me run it very quickly. So it's run. The way you can see the output is by looking at the log, and now if you notice, you have many modules along with whether they are safe SEH enabled in them, ASLR and all of that. Now, there could be many modules in an executable, and hence it might take time if you kind of just scroll and keep looking at what is available, what is not available. There is another simple option, no safe SEH. This will only display modules which do not have safe SEH turned on. Right? So now if you notice, these are the different modules, and if you look at it, all of these DLLs actually belong to the application and are custom DLLs or non-OS DLLs. Right? So what we'll have to do is kind of let's revisit our procedure. The first thing we need to do is find the offset of the ERR and the exception handler on the stack. Then find a pop-pop red sequence in a module without safe SEH. So for example, the SSLEAY32.dll is a module without safe SEH enabled. So let's first find the pop-pop red sequence. Go to the executable modules, double click here. Now before that, here is one of the interesting things you should consider before you go in. If you look at the address space mapping, you will notice that even if though libEAY could also be a possibility, the most significant byte of the address is always 0. Now, as we know, 0 is the most common bad character, and hence we cannot really use this addresses from this module. Here, if you notice, this starts with 1 followed by a couple of zeros and goes to 1001, which means it's a good candidate because there could be some addresses containing the pop-pop red sequence which may not have a 0 byte in them. Right? So now let's go ahead, right click, search for the sequence. Now note that using PD find ADDR you can find these pop-pop red sequences much more faster. I leave that as an exercise to you. So I'm actually telling it, well, find pop-pop red sequences. But here, as you can see, the second byte in the address is all zeros, bad luck. We can just go ahead and carry on the search by pressing Ctrl L. So what we actually want to do is kind of go ahead all the A, B, C, Ds and Fs and actually land up when the next byte changes. Perfect. So now here is one example where we have 100104 BC as the pop-pop red sequence start. Let me just quickly copy this down on Notepad. We're going to use this later on. So the memory address here is 100104 BC of our pop-pop red sequence. Right, let's restart the program once again. Now there are a couple of things which we need to find. If you remember the exploitation technique, one of the first things actually being the offset, where we are going to override the next ERR pointer as well as the exception handler, right? So let's figure that out. So this is the older program which we used in the previous video. What we are going to do here is, just like always, we are going to paste the pattern from pattern_create. Let this pattern be 2000 long. Right? And now we are all ready to execute it. Let's make this window small, go back here, and let's run this. As expected, there is an error condition. Now at this point, what we want to figure out is, first, of course, We've corrupted the SEH chain. Now we need to figure out where this chain starts on the stack. Let's follow this address on the stack. So here it is. This is how we've corrupted both of them. The exception handler pointer as well as pointer to the next SEH record. Now, as always, let's just quickly use pattern underscore offset to figure out the offsets. So pointer to next SEH record is at AH2A, and the next one, of course, as expected, is just 4 bytes away, H3AH. Right? Perfect. So now let's go back here, open up the EasyChat program, and this is what we are going to do. The first 216 bytes we can just have our A's as usual. After that, here is where we are going to override the next SEH pointer, right? So let's keep it as BBBB. After that, we are going to overwrite the exception handler, and then from that point on, we can just once again have our A's, right? So let's verify if what we figured out is actually true. Now let's go back here, run this, exception is there. Let's go back here, look at the SEH chain. Looks like we've succeeded, and yes, we have. Yes, we can, right? So you have your A's here, 4 B's which have overwritten the next SEH record, the 4 C's which have overwritten the exception handler, and after that, once again, you have your array of A's, right? Perfect. Now let's go ahead and first overwrite the pointer to the next SEH record with the 6-byte jump, which is what this is. Now basically the operand code for that is actually going to be this. So let's go back here into our little program and replace the B's with the jump 06 bytes instruction, which is EB06, and after that we have 2 nopes. Now this next all C's, as we can clearly see, is a pointer to the exception handler. Now from our presentation, this needs to be overwritten with a pointer pointing to the pop red sequence. Now this is something we've already figured out. This is the address to it. So let's quickly go ahead and copy this. Actually, we need to write this in reverse order. So BC 04, then we have 01, and then we have 10. Right, just double check this. BC 04 0110. Perfect. Right, BC 04 0110. Now after that, we're going to have our payload. Now I'm not going to kind of go through again the whole process of finding bad characters and all of that, simply because it just takes a lot of time and every video is going to 45 minutes. So I'll leave the bad character finding to you. I've already done it, and this is the set of bad characters: 00, 0A, 0D. This is something we even expect if you think of the analogy in the Minishare program, because this is an HTTP request, and all of this is going as a string, hence 00. 0A, 0D is basically your /r/n sequence, and 0x20 is actually space. So you can try this as an exercise. Now one of the other things I've done is, because we are running in the context of the SEH, I've actually given the exit function to the SEH, right? So now let's generate the shell code. Now let's copy it back. Right, and you can go back to our Windows machine, restart it, if you notice the exception has happened. One of the most important things, if you've noticed this, in SEH an exception has to happen, because only then will our SEH chain be walked and basically the code which we control is going to be executed, right? So we have a violation. Let's view the SEH chain. It's been corrupted, as you can quite imagine, and if you notice, the next handler has been overwritten by the EB06-9090 sequence, which is basically our jump instruction as expected. So let's go to this handler and basically let's go ahead and follow this handler. That will be interesting. So here we have the pop red sequence. Let's put a breakpoint here. And now let's pass the exception to the program. Right, so we've hit our breakpoint, and at this point of time, let's go ahead, traverse this step by step. And if you notice, we are back here in the EB06 instruction in the 1990s. So let's kind of move forward here. So note that we did not add a nope sled, but that's not anything you need to worry about, because everything is quite well precisioned here. So here we are going to jump to our shellcode now, and awesome, if you notice BD3C17E896, and if you look at the shellcode here, BD3C17E896. So we have now started executing our shellcode, and this is exactly what we wanted, right? And now if you kind of scroll down at the absolute end of our shellcode, everything would execute as we require. So let's actually shut the debugger down. It's no fun in kind of doing a demo using the debugger. Let's start the EasyChat program. Now let's do a demo from here. So you send the exploit. If you notice, the program is still up and running. Good news. Now let's see if we can get to the shellcode. Get to the remote port. Perfect. Awesome. Right, so our exploit worked as expected. Now once we exit here, the program also remotely gets killed. Wow, this was something, right? 3 whole videos till we finally reached here. Well, I could have gone very fast and just pointed you to a couple of resources online, but that's not my style of teaching. Ideally, I actually want to take you through every step required, because that is the only way this can be a self-sustaining tutorial. Because if I point you to 15 different places online, then I think all I'll be showing is just a demonstration of the SEH attack, which I think YouTube has tons of them already, right? So hope you enjoy this style of teaching and you're not getting bored. Videos are getting very long, I can well imagine, but it's just that I think this is the way it should be done. Okay, so that's all I have for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Try this entire exercise out by yourself by downloading the EasyChat program from ExploitDB, and please let me know if you have any questions. After this, I am posting a guest video from Andrew King. He's probably been, one of the key people in driving the questions subsection of SecurityTube, and he's given me wonderful insights in so many of the comments left behind in this primer. So next video would be his. He's created a very awesome video, I think around 25-30 minutes, talks about a lot of interesting concepts including safe SEH. So please watch that. After that, we'll be back again with a couple of more videos in taking example programs to break safe SEH. Okay, that's all for this video. Thank you. Keep coming back.